was home alone for the week, as my family had gone on vacation while I had to stay and work. It was around 2 in the morning, and I stayed up to watch a scary movie in the dark in my basement. I was intent on really scaring myself and seeing how far into terror I could really go while still knowing I was safe in my own home. It was then that I had heard pounding footsteps on the first floor. This in of itself was a pretty common, annoying occurrence when my family was home. Every time they passed through the front hallway, past the basement door, I heard their footsteps. Obviously, this time, given their absence, fear immediately shot through me at the sound. My reflex was to turn the television off immediately. The basement door was up a flight of steps and around a corner, so whoever it was wouldn't have seen any light. I heard the basement door handle click and turn as I sat in absolute darkness. I moved slowly as to be absolutely silent and crawled behind our large television. As I passed it inch by inch, I noticed with panic that its black screen was still dimly glowed. I heard footsteps coming down from the carpeted but creaky stairs. So then I froze in my hiding place, listening. For how many long minutes I heard absolutely nothing. Had the intruder seen the television's afterglow, or had it faded in time? Was it standing in the pitch dark listening for me? I seemed to lie there in total silence for an indeterminably long time. My panic absolutely began to fade, and I began to think a little more calmly at this point. Had I really heard an intruder? Could someone possibly be standing there in silence for so long without making any noise? The basement was so exceedingly quiet that the silence itself began to hurt my ears. Could the unknown person really avoid any noise from shuffling or breathing or anything else? If there was an intruder, it was still in the basement. Because the creaky stairs were incredibly loud. The door handle clicked, and I wouldn't know how to mask its footsteps on the first floor so that they couldn't be heard down here. I began counting in my head, trying to pass the time. As drool fell from my mouth onto that carpet, I didn't dare risk the sound of swallowing. I reached 60 seconds once, twice, 30 times, 60 times. By now my fear had faded, and I was more confused than anything. I estimated I'd been crouched in the absolute black for almost 2 hours at this point, and had still heard nothing. Now, if there was an intruder, none of this made sense. Finally, I decided that I'd have to make some form of move. If I did nothing, the sun would come up and shine in through the small basement windows, and worse, I began to smell something horrible and cloying. Slowly, ever so slowly, I began inching my way towards the stairs by way of the walls. If someone was standing there in the dark, I should be able to go around them and then make a break for the stairs. Meanwhile, the horrible odor grew stronger. Had something died down here in the night? No living person would smell like that. Terrible images of some sort of corpse monster listening for me in the dark erupted in my thoughts, and I moved as fast as I could without making a sound. And just as I finally approached the stairs, there was this enormous clatter, as if something falling or collapsing on the floor. It was at that moment I leapt forward and crashed up the stairs, running out through the open basement door and my wide open front house, now certain that someone has to be in my house. So I called the police from my cell phone and watched my house from afar. The cops came, checked the house, and then grimly came back out to question me. They found a body in the house. Who did it belong to? Well, my elderly neighbor, who seemed to have died of a heart attack. Their belief was that I must have left the front door unlocked, and he must have wandered into my house while dying looking for some form of help. At first, I felt absolutely horrible, obviously, thinking that I had sat there in the dark while this old man literally was dying a few feet away. And then it occurred to me, even if that was the case, what the actual fuck was a loud noise of things falling? That last prompted me to bolt up the stairs and thing out of the house. I asked the police and they confirmed the back door of my house had been left open as well, near a single bare footprint in the mud. Somehow, for some reason I'll never know, there was someone else in that basement with us, silent, waiting, and actually listening in the dark by that old man's corpse. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a short and very short and sweet creepypasta. About, I think, 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes long. I gotta say, I do like the short and sweet ones as much as I do like the lengthy ones. It's really how they're written that matters. I mean, you can have something like Happy Happy, but if it's written like crap, it just gets grating. And the short ones, they may not have enough to really build up any form of context or really scare you at the end of the day. Here, though, it presents you with an idea with, a clever little story around it, but it makes you think, what if this happened in your situation? Now, personally speaking, this one really stood out to me because I have a love-hate relationships with basements. My family has never really used the various basements that we have. Me moving in here, I've never used my own basement personally. I'm doing some stuff in it, but it's very unused for me. I typically stick to a living room, office, bedroom, that kind of stuff. So I don't really go into the basement. And to be honest, I get kind of freaked out of the basement, to be completely serious with you. There's just something about it where it's completely empty, it's super somber, and it's just eerily cold to the point where I just oftentimes feel uncomfortable. A lot of people, they can watch movies, play video games, do all that kind of stuff down over there, but I typically relegate that to my living room in of itself. Not that I have any issue, but, my personal experiences with basements lie in that. So the story sticks out to me because it doesn't really end with any demonic capturing or something like that, which we will get to. It actually has a very somber ending involving an old man who seems to have passed away real time as this person was hiding in one corner, really. And it's a somber ending, but it's kind of a realistic ending. Now, I don't know how realistic it can really be from my perspective because I've never really lived in a place where everyone has left their front doors unlocked. I don't know how common that is. We usually lock our doors so that nobody really intrudes in. Not that we really worry about burglars, but it's just common practice. I think that's what anybody generally does, so I don't know of any places where they leave this kind of stuff unlocked. Maybe in a smaller rural community where I guess everyone knows each other, everyone knows who could do what and things like that. It's a little more common, but I guess in a suburb, city-esque dwelling, it's just completely uncommon entirely. So I've never really seen it from that perspective. But this person leaves their front door open at night, which is just weird. Maybe they forgot. But around 2 in the morning, an elderly man comes in, and he is dying, unfortunately. But I would wonder why the elderly man wouldn't make any form of noise or, considerable call out for helps. But I don't know much about people going through their own individual heart attacks at that moment. It is a very, intense thing that they are going through at the time. So maybe that would explain why we never heard any form of, call out or anything like that. And frankly, the old man tumbles down the stairs, goes into the basement, no life alert to be spotted. And frankly, at that point, the man continues to die because for 2 hours he's having this heart attack. Probably died a long time ago, not just throughout the span of 2 hours. Hopefully it was quick and painless. And the individual stays behind hiding, and they eventually go down and they uncover the fact that there was somebody else, a third person within the basement. Now, that to me felt like it was added to the point where it was just trying to be a little more scary than it had to. It didn't kill the whole story for me, but I feel like that's why it was added, to just add this aura of extra mystery and spook in a story where you really didn't need it, because at the end of the day, it's one of those scenarios where this ended realistically without that third person. But if you think about it, it's one of those things that could happen at any moment to any of us, you know what I mean? Where we are typically alone at night. Me, being alone most of the times, there are weird noises that you'll hear, footsteps, things like that. I don't typically, put it out to ghosts. I just think of it as the fact of certain elements of my house making noise when they really shouldn't be, wind shifting, things like that. But if you hear some tumbling going down in your basement at 2 in the morning and you're all alone, at that point, I think the individual made a grave mistake where they didn't run out beforehand and call the cops first. Well, not call the cops, but run out beforehand, because if I heard things that loud and that stilted and that, shifting around, things like that, I would have ran out of my house a long time ago. But hey, everyone's different, and the protagonist was in, reality quite realistic given the context of the story. So all in all, basically what occurred was that person was at their house at 2 in the morning. An old man came in, dying of a heart attack, and fell down the stairs with a third person over there. But to me, the third person, of course, wasn't really as exciting, I guess, as it would be to some people. I like the context, the entire story, the idea of it, where, parts of your home, especially the basement, where you don't take much notice to, anybody could be hiding there at any moment, right? Things are really that weird sometimes. I'm not saying that everyone has that issue, but, at moments when you least expect something, that's when it really happens. So, hey, in your deep, dark, grim basements where the lights are completely turned off, it's basically abandoned most of the time, there could be something down there. Doesn't have to be human. Could be anything. And I think that's where the story really shines. Again, with creepypastas, you have to give up some sense of reality to them. You have to put yourself into a suspension of disbelief, if anything. And I think in that case, it really does pretty well. And that's all the analysis I can really give this story entirely. It's a good, spooky story. It gives you a nice idea rather than a full-on story like some other creepypastas do, and that's fine. And it makes you wonder what could really happen in those deep, dark crevices in your home, you know, if you have a basement or so. To me personally, it freaks me the fuck out because I really don't go down there. I typically stay away, and oftentimes it's just too quiet. I can hear myself think, and I do not like it. But for some people, it might not spook them, and hey, frankly, some people, they might like living in the basement. Hey, it's colder in the summer, so I don't knock it at all. Tried it a few times before. That being said, this has been another episode of Creepypastas. That's all really I can say about this. If you found the basement to be exciting, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you would rate and change to make this better. This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, part of Creepypastas. Let me know what you think. This is me, Moodhar, and I am out.